is South Dade Shoutout. Every week we come together, we bring business owners, business leaders, community leaders, and talk to them about how they help make South Dade the community to live, work, play, and flourish in. Today we're joined by my good friend, also a member of the board of the South Dade Chamber, Mr. Kenneth Wright. Mr. Kenneth Wright is going to talk to us today about a very important aspect in all of our families, health insurance coverage, because Kenneth Wright is the health insurance savant. Hey, Ken.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
I don't think the word savant is used enough today, and I'm going to be using it over and over. I'm going to say it more than a couple times today.
Good. Good.
Hey, so I think health insurance is one of those things that everybody knows we need to have.
Yes.
And I suspect that the majority of us don't know enough about it.
Okay.
Talk to me about what's coming up beginning November 1st.
Well, November 1 is known as open enrollment or health insurance open enrollment. That is when individual plans will be available for people. These are people that aren't getting insurance through their employer, and they have to purchase it somewhere else.
Have you, to interrupt you, have you noticed an increase industry-wide that there is not less W-2s or less employers are providing insurance? Or in other words, people are coming into the market individually more on their own? Is that happening?
I mean, it's hard to say.
Okay.
It's hard to say that. I can tell you that a lot of individuals feel like they can't afford insurance, and a lot of employers feel like that is a critical thing for their employees. But for a lot of employers, not offering their employees insurance is best for them, and it's best for their employees. And what I mean by that is that if an employer is offering health insurance for their employee, there are certain costs that are involved in that.
Okay.
So you're going to offer a plan to an employee. Let's just say the plan is going to end up costing $300 a month. And you're going to split it with your employee. So he pays $150, you pay $150. Well, if you're paying that employee $35,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, there's a good chance that he or she can find a health plan in the marketplace that I'm talking about that begins November 1 for less than that, $50 or $100 maybe.
Okay. So
by offering the employee health insurance, you're really forcing him or her to pay more.
Okay, that's a really good place to start. As in most things, we should look for experts. So how should an individual or the head of a household approach you, call you, and say, "Hey, this is what I need"? What are the questions that you would ask them to determine the kind of coverage they need?
Well, what I would number one, I'm going to ask them is that health coverage is based on really a couple of things. The first thing it's based on is coverage costs is based on age and based on medical history. And what I mean by that is someone that's a young, healthy 25-year-old has a much different need for coverage than an unhealthy 60-year-old. So someone that has no issues with their heart or lungs or liver or pancreas or whatever it might be can afford to pay less for coverage than someone who has those medical issues.
And if they have kids, that's a whole other type of consideration that they need to look into.
Well, a lot of people tell me that I'm really worried about my kids. Those are the ones I want to make sure are covered. That is backwards.
Really?
You need to make sure you're covered. Because if you're not covered and something happens, those kids aren't going to go out and work and take care of you.
Okay.
They're not going to get a job and pay for those medical bills.
You mentioned when we were talking earlier about the Affordable Care Marketplace, and I think that's something that you help people navigate.
Right. Well, the thing about the marketplace that is great for most individuals is that it is a subsidized marketplace, meaning that it's income-based. So if you're making X number of dollars and you have Y number of people in your household, then you'll get Z type of subsidy. And what I mean by that is if you're a family of 4 that's making $120,000 a year, there's a good chance you'll have to pay nothing or maybe $100 or $200 a month for your health coverage because you're going to get a subsidy of over $1,000.
Wow. And not every healthcare broker knows these things.
They better know these things. This is the most basic thing that's out there right now. How
does somebody that's looking for healthcare insurance determine which is the right person to help guide them through all this? What kind of questions should I ask you?
Number one is experience. You know, how long you've been doing this stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is number one and most critical. Number two, don't be afraid to ask for references or referrals. Is there someone else that I could talk to that's worked with you? Go on their website and look at Google reviews. Those are the kinds of things that are going to give you the kind of information you need, because besides that, the types of stuff that you might want to ask is too complicated to try and figure out. You can just say, how many plans do you work with? You know, who's your favorite carriers? All that kind of stuff. Right. It doesn't really matter. The fact is you want to make sure that they can find the best health plan you can for you at the price that makes sense to you. And if you're not happy with what they come up with, go to another person and compare it. So it's possible to customize the kind of plan that I need. Let's play with a stage of family. So it's I'm a father of married with 2 children. I'm earning $80,000. My wife is earning $90,000. So together we make. See how I did that? Mm-hmm. We're making almost $200,000. So it's a pretty comfortable home, but we've got expenses. I know enough where I'm about to ask you what kind of plans you represent, but you're telling me I should just tell you this is what I need. You can customize these things. If you told me that right there, the first thing I would ask you is what kind of medical conditions does your family have? And if you told me we're healthy, there's nothing going on, we're in really good shape, we get our annual exams, we've never been in the hospital, my wife doesn't plan on having a baby, what I would suggest would be a low premium, I mean you pay a little bit each month, and a high deductible plan. And the reason I would suggest that is because if you aren't expecting any costs, then why pay each month for something you're not going to be using or needing? So let me continue with this. So that's the one scenario. Now, if you told me my kid's autistic, my wife's a diabetic, those are things you're going to incur ongoing costs each month. And if that's true, then it might be smarter to pay a higher premium each month, lower your deductible, so that you'll have less out-of-pocket costs by the end of the year. Got it. The question that I kind of tangle with is what determines what level of coverage I should What do you mean by level of coverage? Well, do I get a premium plan? Do I get a plan that gives me access to Medical and Baptist, whatever? Well, it depends upon what your needs are. Okay. Like I said, you mentioned risk coverage. For a young, healthy 25-year-old, there are certain plans called HMOs. Mm-hmm. And that means it's a health maintenance organization. That means that you choose a primary care doctor, and that primary care doctor will refer you to different specialists if there's a need for seeing a different specialist. Those are very low-cost plans, and because they're low-cost plans, they pay the doctors a low amount of money, they pay the facilities a low amount of money, and in general, you're going to find the less expensive doctors, which in some cases people might think might be less good, but all it means sometimes is that they're just brand new in the business and figuring stuff out. Can I, as part of the conversation, you recommend? Well, you might want to consider an HMO. Here are the primary doctors. Can I go interview those doctors? Sure, you can. Yeah, right. Sure, you can. Okay. What I like about this conversation, and it's changed from 30, 40 years ago, where there requires a more engagement on the part of the client. Yeah, they call that consumerism. Yeah? That started probably almost 20 years ago when we went from indemnity plans, which was the only thing that was offered was a plan where you'd have a $500 deductible and it was 80-20, meaning that the health plan would pick up 80%, you would pay 20%. And there was no cap on that.
Right.
So if it was a $100,000 bill, you'd pay $20,000.
Wow.
If it was a $200,000 bill, you'd pay $40,000. It's just the way that it was. When managed care came into place, what they wanted to do was manage those costs because those costs were also high for the insurance companies. So they started doing things like caps on plans. So a plan would only pay a doctor so much money, those kinds of things that changed it. And when that changed, people started needing to find out more about their health plan because where you went and what you did could impact your out-of-pocket cost.
I think folks don't realize that we can ask questions. And I was sharing with you that I've just recently become really much more engaged at my age with my doctor. Like right now I have a doctor.
When you're 75, that's what you got to do.
I look good, right? But what I like my doctor. I like him personally. I like his team. And before I'd never had an opinion before about that. And I think what you're telling us is it behooves us to be more engaged and ask those kind of questions.
Right. And you were also telling me earlier that the doctor wants you to get a lot of tests and wants you to see him on a fairly regular basis. And there's a cost for that.
Right.
Right. So you have to decide as a consumer whether you want to spend that money or not. Does it make sense for you, even though you do or don't like this doctor? Is he providing the kind of service you want? And it might be worth it for you to spend $150 extra bucks a month to maintain that sense of care than somebody else who says, you know what, I don't need to have that guy. Because that's really, it's up to you.
Right.
And you feel really cared for, and that's priceless.
Right. How then can the right insurance savant help you save money, help a family save money?
Okay, now this is the simplest question is that don't worry about your monthly cost, number one. I mean, I don't mean don't worry about it. I mean, but your premium is only part of what you'll be paying for your health care costs. Your premium is your monthly sunk cost.
Okay.
Right? But there's also the deductible.
Every doctor's appointment, you got to write a check for
No, that's a copay.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, it's the copay. No, the deductible means that it's outside of the realm of the copay. The deductible means if you go get an X-ray, or if you have to have an MRI, or you have to have some kind of testing, the plan is either going to pay nothing until you hit your deductible, or it's going to pay a percentage until you hit your deductible. And what you have to decide as a consumer is how comfortable you are with betting on your health, because that's what you're doing. Now, I always say to people, bet on your health, because if you're paying $200 a month for a plan and you have a $10,000 deductible, right? And you say, you know what, that's too high for me. I want a $8,000 deductible. So now you're paying $400 a month. You've increased your out-of-pocket costs by $2,400 to potentially save $2,000.
And what if you never hit the deductible? Like, what if you don't go to the doctor enough
That's good.
Right? Okay.
You don't want to hit your deductible. That's bad.
Okay.
That means you've been in the doctor a lot. That means there's something wrong with you.
Well,
yeah. But people always say, well, I'm not using my plan. When everybody says I don't use my plan, my response is good.
Yeah.
You're lucky. You're fortunate.
And I don't mean to go down this path, but this is something that an observation that I've had that touches what you do. We live in a society that on one hand, we aren't taking care of ourselves. We're a little overweight. We're doing all these bad things that we know about. But on the other hand, this is also a time where people are really hyper concerned about what they do. They're working out. There's all kinds of things. There's these two extremes, right? The danger is that both of those extremes don't go to the doctor enough. I recently discovered that I suffer from high blood pressure. I never thought about that. I had all these recurring headaches. Didn't think anything about it. Never went to the doctor enough.
That's a bad sign.
Well, it's better now. Thank you very much.
Good.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. So that's not your role about go and get regular checkups, but you kind of facilitate that relationship for the person to feel comfortable to go do that?
Well, the good news is we'll go back to the ACA plans, which are the Affordable Care Act plans that are sold between November 1 and December 15 every year. Those plans are mandated to provide preventive care at no cost, meaning you get to go see your doctor, get a physical. If you're a woman and you're of the right age, get a mammogram, get a pap smear, go get a colonoscopy again if you're of age. So all those things are covered.
At the bare minimum, do that, yeah?
I'm sorry?
At the bare minimum, do that.
Oh, yeah. But those things are all covered. All the preventive stuff is covered. So people should consider doing those things. There's other plans out there that don't fund those things. And the reason they don't fund those things is that their monthly premium is much lower. So you have more money to decide what you want to do with it. Mm-hmm. Now, I always recommend people that they still do those preventive exams.
Of course.
But again, that's up to the individual to decide what they want to do. Some people don't want to be told what they have to do. They'd rather just make their own decisions, even when they aren't necessarily the best decision for themselves.
Okay. The people that you're going to see, particularly in this next beginning November 1st, and in the area that the South Dade Chamber covers, primarily not a lot of large companies that provide healthcare. So we've got entrepreneurs, we've got small businesses. These are potentially all people that should be looking for somebody like you. Would you also help a business owner kind of put together a plan for their employees?
Sure.
Yeah? How does that conversation go?
It goes just like what I said from the very beginning, which is sometimes it doesn't make sense for a company to offer health insurance to their employee. If they aren't paying their employees enough money, then those employees get to qualify for a subsidy in the marketplace.
Okay.
So you don't want to do that, right? You want to make it easy for them, but you don't want to. You might want to give them an extra $100 a week. That's a month.
That's a wonderful business conversation.
Rather than again, and it's up to them where they want to spend it.
Yeah.
But that'll allow them to purchase that plan, and then talk to someone like me to help make sure that they can get that plan and understand what they're doing.
Invite you to present to the employees. Hey, think about these things.
Now, for an employee health plan, yes. I mean, sometimes it does make perfect sense to offer your employees a health plan. You're paying them enough money where they're not going to qualify for a subsidy, and it makes sense for you to provide them those benefits. And there's also something out there for W-2 employees that's a fairly new thing, where if a company puts in a wellness program, they as a company can receive a $500 tax refund, and each employee will receive up to $150 each week as a tax refund that they don't get in their pocket. Okay, but they can use this money to purchase different benefits. They can use it to purchase life insurance, a critical illness plan, an accident plan, things like that. And it's no cost to the employer, and it's no cost to the employee. The thing they have to do is be compliant with the wellness program that's instituted.
Is it difficult to be compliant? Is it pretty stringent?
It's an app.
Okay.
So let's start off with that.
Okay.
You have to engage the app 4 times during the year.
Really?
That's all you have to do. And then you're compliant.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Let's consider doing those things, right?
It's a real. But again, this is one of the things out there where if a company can't afford to spend money for their employees for their health insurance, or it doesn't make sense for them to do because employees aren't being paid enough, this is a great way to offer them an incentive to stay working for you.
Okay. I feel like there's a lot of questions I need to ask you, but I don't know how deep we can go into. For example, you mentioned HMOs. There's different types of HMOs. No? One kind of HMO. See, I'm asking questions that I should have prepared for.
No. There are different types of networks. An HMO is a health insurance network.
Sure.
There are PPOs, there are POSs, and there are EPOs. The only thing that matters is an HMO, you have to stay in the network, and you won't get coverage outside of your network. You have no choice except to stay in the network.
Okay.
Okay. With a PPO, a POS, or an EPO, there are out-of-network benefits.
So if I travel a lot, if we do a lot of vacationing, we expect to be out of state, out of area for any extended amount of time, we should consider
a PPO or a POS.
Are they more expensive?
They are more expensive.
I asked you a question earlier about, is it possible to be penny wise and pound foolish, and you said the reverse is true.
Yeah, I mean, what people ask about a lot of times is they're worried about their deductible level, and that's not something to be worried about unless you're unhealthy, right?
Right.
What you should be worried about is your sunk cost, right? How much am I paying each month for my health coverage? I recommend everybody limit that. So I have a $10,000 deductible, right? I'm paying $300 a month for my health plan. Okay. I recommend a plan like that rather than paying $600 and having a $5,000 deductible, because you're going to be losing $3,600 for sure, no matter what. Now, how do you offset that? But you're still at risk for that $10,000. You can buy a hedge or an accident plan that will offset that deductible. So rather than being $10,000, it'll only be $250 if you have an accident, if you're hospitalized, or if it's a critical illness. And you can add a hedge like that for $30 or $40 a month. So to me, that makes sense, because that means the only time you're going to incur costs for your deductible is if you have to have a bunch of tests. So my belly hurts. You go in, they want you to get an ultrasound. Well, you're going to have to pay for that. Yeah. Oh, I have a headache. Get an MRI. You're going to have to pay for that. But if any of those things are related to an accident, so you bang your head and they want you to get an MRI, then it's covered under the accident plan.
Wow. See,
if you're hospitalized and you do an MRI, it's covered under the hospital plan.
Okay.
So those are things to think about, is how can I reduce my risk, and is there an accident or a hedge plan or a gap plan that'll help me do that?
And there's a lot of other things to consider. For instance, what if I'm in a transition? I am 40, about to going into my 50s. My needs become different. Or if I'm particularly active, I do ultra marathons or I scale mountain. That's something to think about, because I get different kinds of pain. These are all things. I guess what I'm struggling with is, how do I know when to start looking at other types of plans? I guess I need
every year you should look at every year you should have a conversation with a professional.
That's the point. Every
year you should have a conversation with a professional.
That's a great point.
Even with, I'd say, health insurance, life insurance, car insurance, homeowners insurance. Any type of insurances you have, you shouldn't sit on the same plan for more than a year. You need to make sure, because things change. And when things change, risk levels change. And when risk levels change, your needs change. I have my sin here is not looking at my healthcare needs like a real consumer. And I guess I'm stuck back in the 50s. And heck, I haven't had I've been on my own for many, many years, but I'm still stuck in that old mindset. And I think one of the good takeaways of this conversation is for all of our listeners and the folks in the chambers to have conversations with you every year, at least every 2 years, every 2 years at max. Yeah, things change every year in the health insurance industry. So, and a lot of people get automatic renewals in the mail, and then they see that their premium is going up by 6 or 7%. Very rarely will you see it go down. I had a guy right now that says premium's going up by 20%. Just don't accept that. Don't just say, well, I guess that's the way it has to be. No. We wouldn't accept that if we were buying any other commodity. We wouldn't accept that at all. We would. I love it. No, people spend more time worrying about what they're going to wear in the morning than their health insurance plans. They just don't take the time to try and figure out what's going on, because it's so complicated. Got it. And the one thing, first of all, healthcare.gov is an incredible site. That's where you find marketplace plans, the Affordable Care Act plans. The problem with it is that, like any website, if you start doing this thing on your own and you make a mistake to try and change that, can be really problematic.
That's the penny wise.
Or the kinds
part.
of things that you might need to submit can be real questions for you. So I always recommend talking to an agent. There's no more. People always say to me, well, how much do I owe you then? You don't owe me anything, right? We are paid by the insurance companies to provide information about their products and educate the consumer. That's our role. They pay us to do that. So you do this on your own or you do it to someone else, you don't pay them anymore. Your plans cost the same amount.
Particularly in our community, again, because of the makeup of the community that our chamber serves, where it's a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of folks doing things on their own. And the message here is, one, talk to a professional, but two, there is a plan out there that you can afford.
I'm going to give a really weird example. I was shocked when I saw the news about Mary Jo Retton, is that her name?
The
the
Olympian.
gymnast, how she doesn't have any insurance and she needs to go fund me and all this stuff. I'm sorry. I am sorry. She could have gotten a plan that she could have afforded. And the idea that she didn't have one is a reflection, two things. It's a reflection on our society and people not being made aware of stuff better, but it's also a reflection on her. I mean, there are things out there for everybody. There's nobody in this country that should not have health insurance. It is affordable for everyone. It may not be the kind that you want, and it's not going to be health coverage. Now, I mean, let's talk about that for a second real quickly. People want health coverage. They want to pay for every single thing. I went to the doctor. I want to pay for that. I want to get x-rays. I want to get paid for that.
My medicine.
That's health coverage.
Yeah.
Health insurance is to make sure that if something, okay, I have a daughter who had a stem cell transplant. Okay. That cost over $2 million. Our family paid about $25,000 for that $2 million cost. That is health insurance. All right. Going to see a doctor that might cost you $150 out of pocket if you went to see them, with no insurance. That's not health insurance. That's health maintenance. It's the same thing as the car insurance, analogy, which is car insurance pays for damage to your car. It doesn't pay for tire rotations. It doesn't pay for fluids. It doesn't pay for tune-up. Those are things you pay for out of pocket. And that's the same way with health insurance. Your everyday, daily stuff, you could pay for. You wouldn't even need to have insurance for. The reason you have insurance is in case something happens and you get a $50,000 bill or a $100,000 bill or a $200,000 bill. And that's why I talk about risk aversion or risk profile. Mm-hmm. Because if you're comfortable with the concept of running into a $200,000 bill, you need a different kind of insurance than someone who's concerned about a $10,000 bill.
Got it. That's powerful. And in a society where we say things like nothing more important than your health, yet we spend so little time educating ourselves about things like health insurance, it just doesn't make sense.
Well, it's not. What it is that people would rather have the fancy iPhone, the 75-inch TV. I mean, those things are tangible, everyday benefits. The idea of spending $300 a month on health insurance for a lot of people is like, I'd rather spend it on my phone bill.
Right. Well, there's a lot of things that we're taking away from here today. Ken,
that's because I'm the savant.
You're the savant. See, we got to use that more often.
Exactly.
We're going to scroll your information on the bottom of the screen so people will know how to get a hold of you. I want to stress to everybody that's listening here that Ken is a consummate professional, and you owe it to yourself to speak with somebody like Ken to get advice. Little things. You can talk to your doctor. You can interview the doctor. You can do all these kind of things. And it's been enlightening, Ken. It really has been enlightening.
I just want to say real quickly, one thing people have to realize is that I am the savant. And that's why people always say, why use an agent? when you could choose the Savant.
Oh my gosh, I should have stopped. Anyways, Ken, thank you. It's wonderful. It's wonderful serving with you, and thanks for the insight. And people, thank you very much for joining us. Come back next week on South Dade Shoutout.